Okay, so now I'm listening to Elliot Hools. Sorry, Hools. I'm trying to remember that Elliot Hools, and he's talking about his religion and his evolution into becoming a member of the Baha'i faith, which I've actually heard of that religion before, but I haven't done a lot of investigating. I don't know very much about it. But he's sort of explaining it, breaking it down, and at some point in the talk, he talks about um, wanting, all of us wanting to connect with God on some level, and I had this thought. It's such an odd thought, but and I guess it kind of reminds me of Dogma. But I thought, well, what if God simply can't speak to us? Like like we have this yearning to have the all of our questions answered, you know. And I think that what we believe is that once our questions are answered, we'll have nothing to fear. You know, um, it's the idea of conquering death, the great unknown, the great divide. You know, and if God could breach that divide, we would have nothing left to fear. And we think of life as this game, this game that we play. And I don't know what the point is. I guess everybody has their own sort of rendition as to what the game is. And but sometimes religion plays into that and sort of makes it like, well, you try to be a good person, you want to help humanity, but also because you're going to gain points in the afterlife and make it to heaven. Right? That's the and you've won an eternity in heaven. Like that sort of thing. And I guess you cross your fingers and hope that's the case. But I was thinking, what if what if have you ever seen the movie Dogma? If you haven't, I I love this movie. I highly recommend it. But in it. It's a really sort of smart, funny, um, sort of commentary. It's fictional, but it's this commentary on religion, and it just brings up all of the stuff that you wrestle with. Um, if all of us as we go through our lives, and just where does all of this stuff fit in, and how does it fit in, and how do I think about it? Anyways, at the end of the movie, God makes an appearance in the form of a woman. Nice. And as it turns out, God can't speak to us, right? It's Alanis Morissette, by the way. And I won't tell you how it ends, but just this particular part of it. Um, and the reason God can't speak to anybody is because God's like a horn, like this, when she, like, for God to open her mouth, it's like a cataclysmic event. Right? Human beings can't actually uh, hear her. Like it's not physically possible. And and I thought, wouldn't that be interesting if that were the case? That God is like would love to sit down and have a conversation with you, like one on one, like have over a beer, and but can't because physiologically it's not possible. Physiologically, it's impossible. So the closest thing we can do as a people, as we work on ourselves and improve our improve the process, this process of ascension, and making our way through the realm, uh, is try to pick up on all of the different ways, all of the other more subtle, intuitive, softer ways that God speaks to us and maybe through us, you know? Can you imagine, though? I mean, if God really was this synthesis of all of these consciousness upon consciousness upon consciousness upon consciousness, if that turned around and tried to speak to you, what would that would be insane. That would be crazy. But I mean, leave it to human beings to have the audacity to be like, I want to sit down and have a beer with all existence. So that might just be an unrealistic thing to ask for, not to yearn for, but it's interesting. It's interesting. Like I like this, as I never really thought about it, because you just assume, well, God can do anything. Yeah, maybe that's true, but maybe it's not. Maybe it's not true. Maybe it's one of those things where if God did do that, that would be some kind of like undoing of, it goes against the grain of the program, of reality, of the way reality is structured, right? All existence can't simply speak to you at once. That would be in fact problematic, and that might completely undo existence, right? Which is, I think, what Dogma had sort of dealt with. This the guys were there was some sort of loophole. These angels were in trouble. They were like outcasts of heaven, and they had to try to make their way back into heaven. But if they tried to, they would undo existence. So maybe it's one of those things, And that's why we can't have sit down with God and have a beer and have all of those questions answered. It just doesn't work like that, you know. But yeah, I had never really thought about it myself. And I thought it would be really beautiful to think that that's the one thing God wants to do too. You know? Wants to sit down and just have a beer with you and tell you all the stuff, all the stuff of the stuff of the stuff. But can't. So what God does in the meantime is this is the process. This is the process by which we grow and we develop and we become whatever it is we need to become in order to evolve to a space and time where maybe that might be possible. Just not yet. We're just not there yet. But I like the thought. I like the idea of. I mean, not the idea of that we couldn't ever possibly have a conversation. I mean, and like I say, I'm not saying that the universe doesn't speak to you. I think it does, but in the way that we want it to, in those very practical sort of, it's like you've had a long day and you just you need some answers. Just not like that. But I like the thought. Like as much as we need help and we want to connect and we want that assurance that feeling is reciprocated. I like that idea.